This weekend, on Sunday, September 7th, we have a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. Eclipses are busy times of change, and this lunar eclipse is especially dynamic because it's co-present with Saturn. Saturn retrograde in Pisces. And it's also in easy aspect with Jupiter, making this eclipse, bringing sort of even more of an expansive quality to this eclipse than it already has, and bringing some extra positivity and luck to the mix as well. And we also have Uranus stationing retrograde this weekend. So we have a lot to talk about, and I'm excited to talk about it with you all. Let's start by marking the eclipse on our chart here. I didn't mark it ahead of time because I wanted to make sure to highlight the fact that Saturn is there as well. I actually am going to circle Saturn too, even though Saturn isn't directly a part of this eclipse. It's not conjunct. So a full moon occurs when we have the moon across from the sun, right, in the chart, in the appearance. This is why a full moon always rises at sunset. When we have a full moon in the sky, it's opposing the sun. And the nodes, this is the north node. It sort of looks like headphones. And then the south node across the way, I say it looks like a horseshoe a little bit. Those mark the point in the sky that when the sun and moon meet up with them, we have an eclipse. That's what the nodes signify. And they are an incredibly important part of astrology, of the sky. And I think they're often underestimated when we start learning astrology, because it's not a planet that we've heard of before. You go, oh, my Venus, where's my Venus? What's going on with Venus in the sky right now? But the nodes and eclipses in general are one of the first things that I look at in any chart. They're incredibly important to pay attention to because they do show where those eclipses occur. And eclipses kind of prove astrology in a way. They're like full moons, like a lunar eclipse, like the one we're having now, is like sort of a full moon times 10, right? Full moons, even, many would agree, have some impact. There tends to be an impact in the world that is sort of tangible. You know, people who work in schools or hospitals might tell you that, yeah, sometimes things are busier during a full moon. And eclipses, doing that sort of extra, it tends to be a busy time of change. Things tend to look different on one side of an eclipse cycle than they do on the other. We're at the midpoint right now of the nodes being in Pisces and Virgo of this nodal cycle. It happens for about 18 months. And so the themes that are coming up, we're sort of in the middle of working on them. I've spoken quite a bit about this south node in Virgo and how we're releasing perfectionism and the need to plan everything, prepare everything, perfectionism, releasing being too critical with ourselves, being too hard on others. And this is a great time with these nodes in Pisces and Virgo to let in more of the surrender qualities, not meaning giving up, meaning going with the flow, knowing what you want, listening to your instincts and your inner guidance. But I want to kind of break it down and be really specific here today. So whenever we have eclipses, it's a time of change, it's a time of movement, it's a time of happening in the collective and in your own life. We can usually look at one side of an eclipse cycle and the other side of the eclipse cycle and notice that things are quite different. on one side or the other. We tend to get real movement in our lives. It tends to support the part of our lives that are where we're on track. We can get a little forward movement with those areas. And then areas where we're a little off track, you can sometimes get a course correction. I'm seeing so many wonderful comments, so many comments in the chat. I'm so happy to have you all here. Welcome, welcome. I love filming these astrology reports live. And I think what I'm trying to do for now is read the chats at the end. So I'm going to say sort of all the astrology stuff that I'm going to do here, and then put any questions or comments in the chat. And once I'm done sort of talking about the big picture of the astrology here, I will I'll go through those and I'll answer any and all questions that you have. And if you're watching this later, feel free to leave questions in the comments and I'll read them too and either get back to you through the comments, or I can also talk about it the next time I come on for a live report. Generally, I do these reports on Mondays and Fridays. Sometimes it might be a little off, but almost always Mondays and Fridays. Like I did a long weekend one for Labor Day last weekend. Okay. So we're in the middle of the nodal cycle. Eclipses are especially powerful times of change and movement. We're releasing perfectionism, going with surrender, going with the flow, not being so hard on ourselves or others, but taking care of things, We also, between the South Node here and Saturn here, we're not going to get away with anything. You know, you should be busy and productive and doing the things that you said you were going to do during this eclipse cycle, because both of those planets enjoy that energy. And so doing that is especially helpful. Let's talk about the fact that it's co-present with Saturn, because that's really important. Saturn moved retrograde into Pisces on the 1st of September. So it's sort of newly here. And it almost feels to me like Saturn came back for the eclipse. You know, it's just interesting timing to return to this house and sign just a few days before. So I think that Saturn is bringing a seriousness to it, a weight to it, that is really showing us that this particular eclipse, the way that Jupiter is interacting as well, even the way that that Uranus is stationing retrograde, this particular eclipse is important. It's a big one, and we are right in the middle of this nodal cycle. So we'll have a lunar eclipse this weekend on the 7th, and then in 2 weeks, there'll be a solar eclipse. And that's how eclipses always work. They always come in pairs, occasionally, very rarely. There's 3. And these are routine occurrences. We have eclipses every 6 months, right? This isn't something that only happens every 400 years or something. We've had some extraordinary astrology lately. And eclipses get a lot of attention because they really do kind of prove astrology. And in my opinion, if you look at what happens in the collective, I really have noticed that eclipse seasons are busy. A lot tends to happen in the world. By the time we get to second week of October, things might be really changed from how they are now. Tends to be a busier time. And that does tend to happen in our lives as well. So we have the lunar eclipse, and then we have the solar eclipse a week before, 2 weeks before, and a week after to 2 weeks after. That's all considered the eclipse window. I go with the 2-week window on either side, but I also acknowledge that sort of the closer we get to those eclipses, the more potent and busy the energy is. So when we're in between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse, that's an especially busy 2 weeks. And I tend to kind of hold back on a ton of activity during that time. I tend to kind of observe and take care of what I need to take care of and move through life, but kind of let life happen around me a little bit, because it does tend to be busy. So I guess on some level, that is a recommendation that I have for any eclipse cycle is to keep doing your work, keep walking your path. It's not necessarily the best time to impulsively act on some big new idea, right? If you were planning to move anyway and then you find a house during eclipse season, by all means, go look at the house. Um, our lives don't stop, but if all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you really felt like what you want to do is move, I would hold on to that thought until after the eclipse cycle because, yeah, it's a better time to sort of sit back a little and let things unfold. So let's do this. Let's talk about this eclipse sort of specifically and then add Saturn to it. As I said, it is a great time for letting go of perfectionism, letting go of the need to plan. This is a time, there's so many different emotions running through us right now, like moving, changing pieces of information, of feelings, of emotions. There's just so much going on that I do think it's a good time to sort of sit back a little and let all of that process, let all of that move through you. Think about the big picture of things and let the little details surface and then fall away. But we're processing so much right now. We're processing new information. We're processing emotions, um, and we're processing our visions for the future, our dreams for the future. We've had this outer planet triangle that we've been working with all summer, and it's really activated at the time of this eclipse as well because Uranus is stationing retrograde. And now that means that this entire outer planet eclipse, or this, excuse me, this entire outer planet triangle is retrograde. Uranus is retrograde. I'm sorry, Uranus is retrograde, Neptune is retrograde, and Pluto is retrograde. I'll talk about this more in a minute, but just to say, there's a dream of the future that we're starting to process right now. We got a little glimpse of it in the last few months of where we're headed, of where we're going. And there's something around the time of this eclipse and the 2 weeks that follow where we're getting in touch with that dream on a different level. We're processing our feelings about it. We're thinking about all the little pieces and what's going to work and what's not going to work. I would suggest not getting too drugged down into the details there and staying more big picture. Listening to your emotions, listening to your intuitions during this eclipse cycle is a great idea. Paying attention really to what lights you up and what makes you want to back away, and really honoring those feelings, both in terms of how you move through the day and in terms of how you're processing these thoughts about what's next. This isn't necessarily a time to get in there, especially with this lunar eclipse, and try to fix everything. But it is a time to sort of rest a little bit and let things rise to the surface, emotions, understandings. And through this, there's something about this lunar eclipse that has the potential to be such a wonderful uh, renewal moment where it's sort of the turning of a page, the opening of something new. And I think that with Saturn here as well, Saturn moving back into this house and sign, it's like he was a part of that outer planet triangle. He was there hooked up with Neptune. And I think that Saturn and Neptune signature has been a lot. Saturn and Neptune are conjunct for quite a while, retrograde at the very, very earliest degree of Aries. And with that outer planet triangle too, there was so much coming in about technology, changes that are happening in the world, changes that are happening to the way we communicate, to society, to technology, AI, So much coming up for us to process. And I actually think Saturn kind of backing away and going back into Pisces might feel like a little bit of a relief from some of those newer, quick moving themes that had been coming up, especially since Uranus entered Gemini. It feels like the pace of things, especially the last month or so, has just been incredible. The pace of technology changing, the pace of things in our lives moving and shifting. It already was moving fast, and now it's moving even faster. So Saturn begins this retrograde process of the outer planets kind of backing up and taking these final actions, taking these final steps, finding any pieces that might have been missing from the last era, from the Saturn in Pisces story, from the Uranus in Taurus story, from the Neptune in Pisces story. There's some things we need to go back and get. And Saturn is beginning this. So I think Saturn being added into this eclipse, it's like, it's interesting because it's like the moon and the nodes kind of provide, especially the moon is, and the eclipse nature of the moon is providing the emotional understanding that we need, and Saturn is telling you what you need to do. I feel like Saturn with Neptune has been disorienting, but Saturn with the moon can be helpful if we tune into it the right way, even though it's very different energies, right? But it's like we're able to get in touch with our emotions during this time and do something with them. Saturn makes it all very practical. And I think that's pretty neat. I think that we're integrating our learning from the past, where that's part of what processing these emotions says to me. You know, it's like, we don't want to just have these feelings for no reason. We want to have these feelings and learn from them and grow from them. So whatever emotions or thoughts or ideas or processing you're doing during this time, during this weekend with the eclipse, or for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks that follow, it's integrating the emotions and the learning and the lessons of the last 2.5 years with Saturn and Pisces. The feelings that are coming up aren't coming up for no reason. They're coming up so you can make sense of them with the wisdom of what you know now, with the understanding that you have now of where you're headed and where you're going. It's all about preparing you really for this next start, for this next moment. At the same time, it could feel like, and this is true for sort of the later half of or the last quarter, I should say, of 2025 in general, it could feel like you're going backwards a little bit in some way. And this may have happened beginning on September 1st. Like suddenly you're doing things around September 1st, of course. Like suddenly you're doing things that you kind of thought you were behind you or were over for you. But now you find yourself re-engaging in those conflicts, in those to-dos, in those relationships, in whatever that story was. You find it coming, you might find it coming back a little bit with the Saturn retrograde energy here, and then it all being sort of pinged in such an emotional way by an eclipse. But I think it's really important to keep in mind that we are going back and having these feelings in order to make deeper meaning from them, integrate the understanding, and move forward. It's not a delay. You aren't going backwards. It's a slowing down in order to make sure that we're taking everything from the past that we need for what's next, making sure that we integrate all of the lessons that we were meant to learn. Sometimes I feel badly about the things that I say over and over again on here, but I hope that it's helpful. And one of them, I think, is that retrogrades aren't bad. We really need retrogrades. We need these kinds of slowdowns. If all the planets just move forward all the time, if our life just moved forward all the time, it would be too much. especially when we're really switching into kind of a bit of a brand new era, like this outer planet suggests that we are as a collective. If we just soared into that very, very quickly, uh, it would be too much. All these advancements, for example, that we've been having with AI, with ChatGPT, I mean, we've had new terminology come into the scene since this outer planet triangle formed. You know, AI psychosis, and um, you know, it's a time to slow down and to process and to think about what we have going on here, not just continue to rush forward with everything. And that's true in our own lives too. So don't think of anything as a slowdown. If you feel like things are sort of going back, they're not. It's meant to help us move forward with as much wisdom and learning and strength as possible from the past, from what we had before, as we move into what's next. And the fact that it's all in harmonious aspect to Jupiter, I want to add this to the chart as well, because it's important. Jupiter is connecting with the nodes at this time. Jupiter's trining this eclipse from the moon and sextiling the sun there in Virgo. And the sun is obviously a very important part of the eclipse. It's the sun's light that is being eclipsed. So, or it's the sun's light that shines on the moon, you know, and illuminates it, and then that's what's being eclipsed. So I always want to consider a sun when we're talking about a full moon too. But Jupiter being here, it kind of gives the whole signature like even more of an expansive quality. It expands the sort of fated or destined feelings that could come up around this time. I recommend, it might also sort of quicken the pace of everything and just make this eclipse even that much more. This is a good eclipse to slow down when everything's going fast. If it feels like there's a lot happening around you, remind yourself to go slow, because I think Jupiter here suggests there could be sort of even more going on. And, you know, but it's positive. It's positive. It's expansive. There's something that I really like. This all is positive. I'm excited about this eclipse. I hope I'm not making it seem any other way. It does kind of feel like a more important astrology than what we always see, a more significant, and you know what? It feels more sort of palpable, more tangible. There's so much astrology that's sort of more subtle and beneath the surface, or it's happening within us. Eclipses they tend to manifest in terms of tangible events. I do think that the solar eclipse towards the end of the month in 2 weeks is more that way. The lunar eclipse does tend to be more on the emotional level, but eclipses are exciting. And yeah, that's an important thing to mention about them. So with this outer planet triangle, Uranus stationing direct this weekend, now all 3 of those planets are retrograde, which is adding in even more energy that we are processing this new era that we just came into. We've stepped into it, and now everything is sort of going, whoa, 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 slow down. What are we doing? What's working? What's not? What tools do we need? Which ones do we need to let go of? What have I learned from the past that I need to carry into the future? Yeah. So this is an amazing eclipse. I did another video a little while ago about the astrology of eclipse season. I'm going to attach that here because if you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy that. And it has more specifics about sort of what an eclipse is, what is eclipse season, when is it, and some astrology with that. I apologize that that video was a while ago. I was still drinking water during these live streams at the time. I no longer bring water to these meetings. I know they're not good. Also, be sure to check out the horoscopes on my channel to see where this is moving through your chart. My horoscopes are best viewed by your rising sign. That will show you where this eclipse is happening for you. And if you know your chart and you know planets or points that you have there, it might be interesting to uh, take a look at that as well. So I hope you all have a wonderful eclipse season. I'm going to look through the chat now, at which I'm so excited to do. And oh my goodness, good morning, Miss Tell. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to see new people who have just found this channel. I appreciate everyone so much and all of your kindness, all your kind comments. And then it's nice to see some of you that have been with me for a while and have been watching this channel and seen it grow. And so it's nice to see a familiar face. Yeah, the nodes really are very, very important in the chart. I think they're maybe the most important thing. If we track where the nodes are moving through our chart, you'll notice that those areas of your life are especially highlighted. Let's see. Yes, actually, my nodal placement is Pisces Virgo as well, but it's reversed. It's the reverse nodal placement. So my south node is in Pisces and my north node is in Virgo. And I'm a Libra rising, so it's in the opposite houses. So this eclipse is actually falling in my 6th house, and then the solar will be in my 12th. So yes, sometimes if it's lining up with your own nodes, with your natal nodes, either opposing or a return, a nodal return where it's back to where it was at the time of your birth, that nodal cycle might be even a little extra for you. You might notice even more change, even more sort of faded movement coming in, especially in those houses and those life areas. Oh, I love someone listening on your way to work. I know I record them so early. It's just the time that works for me. And I hope that everyone can listen when works for them. But that was sort of my idea that like on Monday morning and Friday morning, you know, these are out. On Friday, it's the one for the weekend. And on Monday, it's the one for the week. So that was kind of my intention in setting that up. So I'm glad that's working for some. Uh. Oh, some people feeling the extra emotions around this time. Get some rest. Get some rest right now. It is really a good weekend to slow a little bit and just let it kind of process. Let whatever's coming up just kind of work through you and you know, expect that there might be more coming in. I also think sometimes it can be helpful to keep a little bit of a journal or notes about what happens during an eclipse cycle, you know, what ideas are coming up for you or what's happening around you, because sometimes we notice connections between between them, you know, especially within the same nodal cycle. So that can be helpful too. But, you know, eat well, get plenty of sleep if you can. Sometimes it can be a little harder to sleep around the time of a full moon, and that's a little extra during a full moon eclipse. I think I slept about 5 hours last night. Um, so yeah, trying to get a little rest and just take it easy, maybe spend a little time in nature, eat well, things like that. Oh, and just sending so much love, sending love. I see someone is a Pisces, so I assume you mean your sun is in Pisces. Yep. And so depending on where it is in your chart, where it is in the sign, if it's very close to this, um, then you would be feeling this eclipse potentially even a little extra, working with you a little bit more personally than others, perhaps. And even just with the nodes moving over your sun, there's something about bringing in the faded nature of that side of the signature more. I like working with the idea of wherever the south node is moving, we can release the more negative sides of that signature. And wherever the North Node is moving, we can release the more positive sides of that signature. So I think that's it from the comments for now. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful Pisces lunar eclipse. Thank you so much for being here.